Good. Yeah. Cool.
Wonderful. So we are
Yeah.
recording per your okay, right? We're going to record today's session. Welcome, everyone. My name is Katia Mark. I'm the Associate Director of the McGill Engine. We're very pleased, along with SEAM, to be co-hosting our Entrepreneurship in Action speaker series this semester with our first speaker of the series, Alex Grant. He'll be talking about there are no adults. We're not too sure what that is. We're going to be very intrigued, but and I'll let my colleagues at SEAM introduce him. Before that, I just have one slide here to tell you about the engine. For those of you that are not aware what the McGill Engine is, we're here to support technological innovation and entrepreneurship. We have three missions. We're here to help develop the next generation of McGill engineers, designers, innovators, change agents, and entrepreneurs by providing a variety of resources such as training and experiential learning opportunities, lots of advising, coaching, funding, and business mentorship. We work a lot with the professors and the grad students in helping to promote and accelerate the results of their research, so helping to get it from the lab to the marketplace, also with a variety of resources, coaching, funding, connections. And we work with companies, innovation-driven companies, for facilitating R&D collaborations with our professors in the Faculty of Engineering. So all in the hopes of driving innovation and helping to make a positive impact and creating value for society. And you have all of our social media links if you want to follow us as well. So now I will stop sharing and allow the folks, the students from SEAM, to pick up and talk about SEAM and then introduce Alex.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anushree, and I'm the VP External in SEAM. So I'm just going to give a quick introduction about SEAM, and then I'll pass it on to Kwong, and he'll give a quick introduction to Alex. So SEAM stands for Sustainability in Engineering at McGill, and we're a student-run committee within the Engineering Undergraduate Society of McGill, consisting of students from all years and departments. We serve as a supporting platform to foster and promote a culture of sustainability within the Faculty of Engineering. And we work to enhance both the academic formation and professional prospects of McGill engineering students. This is done through our four main pillars: events, consulting and projects, educational resources for students, and the integration of sustainability into the engineering curriculum. And I think Alex was actually part of SEAM when he was at McGill, or maybe or the founder of it.
I helped start it, and I named it. I actually named SEAM.
Yeah, so I'll pass it on to Kwong to give a quick introduction of Alex.
All right, thank you, Anushree. So yeah, I'll give a quick introduction to Alex. Alex is a Forbes 30 under 30 honoree in energy with a mission to decarbonize the battery supply chain. He's currently a principal at Jade Cove Partners, where he provides technology strategy advisory services to unconventional lithium projects and the investors who fund them. In addition, Alex is a partner at Minviro, where he helps develop lifecycle assessments for lithium mining projects. He's also the technology innovation advisor at Delandes, a lithium brine field services company, and he's the co-founder of Lilac Solutions, a Silicon Valley lithium extraction technology company funded by Bill Gates' Breakthrough Energy Ventures. Finally, Alex holds a Master in Chemical Engineering at Northwestern University and a Bachelor in Chemical Engineering at McGill. And now, without further ado, I'll pass it on to Alex to start today's discussion.
Yay. Okay, wait, I'm sharing my screen. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Cool. Well, good. Well, thanks for inviting me, Katya. I'm super excited to homecome digitally, at least. Yeah, it's too bad that we're not in person, because I feel like this would be way more fun. However, my email is here, my website is here, my Twitter is here. If you want to chat later on, you know, I'm very accessible, whether you're undergrad or grad or whatever have you. So, you know, feel free to reach out. Okay, so Katya, yeah, so you haven't seen my presentation yet, and you don't know what's in it. And maybe that's enough proof already that there are no adults, because I was allowed to just present whatever I wanted. I basically, like, Katya, you said I could present anything I wanted, and I took the prompt, and uh, essentially what I want to share with you today is the result of me thinking over the last couple of weeks. What is something that I would have wanted to know 10 years ago? I'm now 28, and I arrived in Montreal when I was 17 years old. What is something I wish I knew before I went into the world? Where was I gonna send all these memes at the end of the day? I mean, there are dozens of them saved on my phone, and I had no end game. So I feel like this presentation is a good outlet for that. And this presentation is for the 19-year-olds. This presentation is not for the adults. I believe and trust in your intelligence, undergraduate students, because you are the future. You will soon join the real broader world, and this is for you, and I hope that it's helpful. So I'm just going to share a distillation of some of the things that I've learned over the last couple of years. So just to kind of kick off, so I was at McGill from 2010 to 2015. I co-founded SEAM. I named it. I was EUS VP academic in 2014. Spent a lot of time at TISED. A SURE grant gave me my first research experience in academia in water chemistry, which I still draw on to this day. I volunteered for the Redpath Museum, presenting volcanic minerals at the Montreal Gem and Mineral Show. I did a lot of this for free and to learn and to have new experiences that I never had before, as I was very young, as you are now. And all of it was formative. So I want to stress to you, like, how amazing McGill in Montreal is. First of all, now don't be sad that it's over when you graduate. Be happy that it happened. But like, just based on my experience comparing notes with people who went to other universities in the US and across Canada, McGill has something very special going on. And I don't know exactly what it is. It's probably a very complex mixture of cultures and Montreal and bilingualism and internationalism and McGill's history and the fact that it's a public school, right? If you're from the US or you come to the US, you'll realize that there's a huge difference between public and private schools in the US. But McGill is a public school. It is accessible to middle-class people, and extremely high quality, community and education is available to you for not $50,000, and that is huge. So please know you're in a very special place, and I want to make sure that you really enjoy it and take advantage of it. So Rare Aesthetic 1, this is Halloween 2014 in the EUS office. There was in fact an EUS executive who identified as female, but I decided that I was going to be Snow White. So there's me in drag as Snow White with the 7 dwarves in the office. After I graduated, I went for a PhD in chemical engineering at Northwestern in Chicago. And I left with a master's to co-found a technology company called Lilac Solutions, which had their Series A led by Bill Gates' Breakthrough Energy Ventures. And I'm very proud of all of that. But I left about 2 years ago to start my own research company and do research on kind of the global population of different technologies for making lithium chemicals from natural resources, like brines and sediments and hard rock and different types of deposits that we need to develop in order to make all the batteries in the electric vehicles, which is essential for decarbonization and kind of preventing climate change, right? So for the last 2 years, I've been consulting independently across the lithium industry, working on projects, working with investors, working with technology companies, like all different types of folks from across the gamut, all trying to solve problems at the nexus of technology development and deployment, lithium natural resource development, and environmental impact mitigation and quantification. So Rare Aesthetic 2 is visiting a brine facility in the Western US. Again, boomers, like Gen Xers, I'm really sorry. I mean, it might not make sense, some of what I'm gonna say, like a Rare Aesthetic, but it's a TikTok thing. So, sorry, you're gonna have to put up with it. So on my website, which it's all public, go ahead and peruse it in the future if you like. I publish research articles and essays and op-eds, and I do this because I want to cultivate transparency and new ideas in mineral production, mineral extraction, and chemical industries that help people minimize the environmental impacts of their operations and minimize the environmental impacts of operations which have not yet been built. So, 85 to 90% of the battery material supply chain hasn't been built yet. So in the next couple of years, we're going to be building dozens of new mines all around the world to make lithium chemicals, to make nickel chemicals, to make cobalt chemicals, graphite, all of the materials that are needed to make batteries. And that is kind of the sandbox that I'm playing in. So a lot of it's public. If you want to learn more about what I'm working on, go ahead and read it. But I'm actually not going to talk a lot today about what I work on because I already, I don't want this to be about me. I really want to transfer some of what I've learned about the world and what I think is important for you to learn if you want to have impact and help kind of avoid catastrophic climate change. But if you want to talk in more detail about any of these technical things, please reach out. Happy to chat. But yeah, so I want to kind of take a broader picture that I hope is useful and isn't just focused on battery supply chains, because there are a lot of fields that engineers will have huge impact on to reduce environmental impacts and help us avoid climate change. So it's not about my little neck of the woods necessarily. I think there are rules that are relevant that kind of apply across the spectrum. And by the way, just a kind of another reflection I had on this is why did people give presentations in 1972, right? Why? What was the purpose of a presentation? I was thinking about this and I realized it was probably because information in documents was stored in physically, right? On shelves, right? So the only way for people to communicate about their work was to actually meet in person and give a presentation on a what's it called? The plastic sheet. Do you know what I'm talking about? The projector, or to what's it called, Katya?
Acetate.
Yeah, an acetate presentation, right? And or mail somebody a copied report, right? A photocopy or fax, right? That doesn't matter anymore, right? Because all this information is available on the internet for free, right? You can go retrieve it whenever you want and instantly. So I was just thinking to myself, why would I repeat all this information that's available on the internet for free on my website or wherever, right? If I can instead spend this time with you and communicate something that I think is, kind of underlying all of that and more fundamental. So what I want to communicate today, of course, is that there are no adults. So what do I mean by that? Let's start at the dawn of human civilization. So for a really long time, as our species, started to learn how to cultivate agriculture and manipulate metal and modify energy and materials to do useful work, thermodynamic operations. They did it using kind of really primordial early stage models of reality and how the world worked, right? And the reason why is because they just didn't have very high quality information about reality and how the world worked. They didn't know about DNA and neutrons. right? And as I'm sure some of you know, the neutron was discovered in the Rutherford basement on campus. Just nota bene. So those models were often useful, but most of the time pretty inaccurate, right? Whether that was like a Mesopotamian god's whim to bring rain at a particular time or whatever it is. And since the Enlightenment in the 1700s and 1800s, we've developed much better models of reality because we figured out better ways to collect information about reality, right? Which you could call science. And this is the origination of Nietzsche's "God is dead" statement. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this, but basically Nietzsche went running through the streets one day somewhere in Germany, yelling that God is dead. And really what he meant was that we're all alone here, and it's up to us to collect information and make it useful. Really there are no adults. It's just a reformulation of God is dead. So there's a very long history of believing in adults, whether those adults are gods or kings and queens or other metaphysical assumptions or whatever it may be. And even though we are now a planetary civilization with incredible technology that does incredible things like rockets and batteries and various other kinds of technology, I think that fundamentally most of us still believe in adults. Like most of us still kind of in our heart of hearts believe that someone is like running the show or in charge. And I'm here to report to you that based on my experience and my observations, I don't think anyone's running the show. I don't think anyone's in charge. And realizing that and appreciating that and operationalizing that is important, and I'll explain why I think that's important. And I'm super excited to talk to you Gen Zers, because I think Gen Z is like under 24 now, so almost all undergrads are Gen Z, right? I identify as like a Zillennial and like a millennial, like wannabe Gen Z, because like millennials are like I feel like our whole generation is really like lost, is really missing something. Gen Z, I think, is like really the first like post-adult generation, because you guys are growing up in a world where information is abundant and free, and extremely easily transferable. So you don't need adults to make up your own minds. So I'm excited about what young people are doing today. I believe in them, and I think that they're going to have huge impact on technology and society and everything. So I think it's always lame how like old people always are trying to like come back and like tell us what we should think and how we should behave and like and kind of try to set the rules. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it's true. I don't think it's helpful. So again, like I believe in your intelligence. I believe in your ability to make up your own mind about anything I say today or anything in general. So what am I going to say today? So just as an exercise in sharing some of my observations of recent history and the world, and explaining kind of at a high level why I think it shows that there are no adults and there's no one really running the show. I chose 10 kind of ridiculous examples that I think all fundamentally show that there are no adults. And no one is really in control. And I take a cue from Einstein to kind of explain each of them simply and reductively as a situation of no adults in kind of being in the room. Because I think that's fundamentally how you understand the mechanism behind an event. And if a picture says 1,000 words, then a meme says approximately 1,000 words. Probably 1,000 words plus how many words are on the meme. So I'm going to use memes. I'm gonna just do kind of a meme dump into this presentation of memes on my phone that I thought were hilarious. And this is probably a little risque, I admit, and I'm sorry if it like upsets anyone, but my intentions are good. Okay, first, the U.S. electric utility business. So when I was at Northwestern, I I went through a seminar series called Powering the Future, which was basically these like rich alumni bringing in electric utility and energy company CEOs to talk to the grad students about the energy business. And I learned a lot about the energy business in the United States. But as a very middle class, like Ontario boy from Canada, where like everything kind of, kind of works, right? I mean, things kind of still work really well in Canada in a way that they don't in the United States. I was shocked by what I learned about the U.S. electric utility business. It is insane. There are hundreds of private companies keeping the lights on across the United States, and some of them are publicly listed, right? So they have a fiduciary duty to return value to shareholders, right? Not just keep the lights on. Nothing wrong with fiduciary duty to return value to shareholders, but coming from Ontario, where like there's like I think a couple utilities, like single digit number, and they're all like kind of like provincial government businesses of some sort. I don't remember all the details. I was shocked to learn just like how disorganized and decentralized and just fundamentally like messy the electric utility system was. And the reason why is just because, yeah, there's no one in charge, right? It's no one's job to organize these things and make sure they all work together really well. So this was part of the downfall of Enron in the early 2000s, was kind of associated with this sort of messiness and the financial industry intersection with the utilities messiness. And just this year, the state of California had rolling blackouts, right? Like they couldn't keep the lights on and the air conditioning on in California in 2020. It's a mess, and the reason why is because there's no adults. The Iraq War. So this is not a meme, but it kind of is. So George Bush, after 9/11, he had to kind of show Americans that that he was kind of in charge. So he invaded Iraq to depose Saddam Hussein, who I guess about a decade ago or a decade previously invaded Kuwait and embarrassed his dad. And this picture is on an aircraft carrier where he's saying that the mission of invading Iraq is accomplished because Saddam Hussein is dead, or whatever they did to him. This was in like the 2000s, like pretty much right after that happened. This destabilized the entire region and led to ISIS, right? This was a mess. This was a terrible mess, right? And someone told me when I was putting together this presentation, someone told me that the Iraq War and everything that came afterwards was the first time that many Americans started to realize that there were no adults and that their president could very well be an idiot, and have no idea what he's doing and just be motivated by like emotional, personal reasons for impacting, millions of people's lives in huge ways. So this is possible because there's no adults. The 2008 financial crisis. Sorry, this is heavy. So the 2008 financial crisis is I think really well summarized by the film The Big Short. So if you want to learn more about it, then I think that's a really accessible, fun film to watch. But really, basically, this financial crisis was caused by excessive financialization of the housing market. And basically the realization that at the end of the day, like when people went to kind of go turn in effectively, promises via contracts to extract value from the system, nothing was there, right? It was all kind of made up and invented. And the reason why this happened was because the people running these banks and putting together these contracts and building the financial system were, not trying to make it work for people, right? They were just trying to extract as much cash as possible, as quickly as possible. And this was allowed to happen because there's no adults. Okay, Dogecoin. So after the 2008 financial crisis, there's been a huge uptick in cryptocurrency adoption, and including Bitcoin and Ethereum and different other tickers. And just yesterday, Elon Musk or Tesla announced that they bought $1.5 billion of Bitcoin, right? So cryptocurrencies aren't going anywhere. Dogecoin is a really funny example of people somewhere, some people in their basement, probably in the United States, but God knows where, came together and they said cryptocurrencies are hilarious. In fact, the idea of currency is hilarious. And in fact, the idea of value, which currencies are supposedly a store of is hilarious. The whole thing is hilarious. Like, why is gold valuable? Why is a US dollar valuable? Why is a Canadian dollar valuable, right? So they invented this ridiculous like meme cryptocurrency that with nothing, there's absolutely nothing behind it, right? But its market cap today is like $10 billion, right? People actually buy it. I don't know what they do with it, but they buy it. And it's all a joke. And this happens because there's no adults. Volkswagen and NASA. So I'm being a little bit facetious here. But the point I'm trying to make is that kind of incumbent industrial titans aren't solving our problems, right? So over the last decade or two, NASA has not been planning a trip to Mars or trying to put people on Mars. Volkswagen has not just not been accelerating the electrification revolution to decarbonize transport, but in fact trying to cheat emission standards, right, for their diesel vehicles, right? And this was a huge controversy a couple of years ago. These supposedly kind of adult in the room companies or organizations just fundamentally were not doing what should be done, right? Whether that was to decarbonize transport or bring us to Mars or whatever it may be. Elon Musk did those things, right? Elon Musk made Tesla the most valuable OEM on the planet that it is today, and really solidified the case for the EV transition. And it wouldn't have happened without Tesla. And the exact same thing goes for SpaceX and going to Mars. If it wasn't for that guy's like energy and interest and passion, it just wouldn't be happening, right? And that is the case because there are no adults, right? He wasn't going to wait around for Volkswagen and NASA to figure it out. Okay, this is probably the raciest one. So we're currently in the middle of a pandemic. It's a mess. There's a new variant that's about to take over that's gonna, kind of kill hundreds of thousands of more people in the next couple of months. It's terrifying. It's really bad. And why is it happening, right? It's happening because we could not figure out a way to prevent it from happening before, whether that was shutting down wet markets in Wuhan or having better surveillance technology for new viruses around the world or whatever it may be. Like, we had some systems in place, but there was kind of a deranged maniac in charge of the United States who had no interest in actually preventing this from getting out of control. This is happening because we just didn't expect it, right? Because nothing like this has happened in 100 years. And we're not very good at preparing for things that don't happen for 100 years at a time. And it's happening because even the WHO wasn't really fully fundamentally like empowered and in charge enough that it could be prevented. So again, this is kind of happening because there's no adults and it's just us, and we're doing our best, but it's not good enough. Okay, Tiger King. So this one's a bit lighter. Okay, so Tiger King is a TV series, a digital TV series that came out almost a year ago, an 8-part series, which showed this kind of totally bonkers, insane legal drama between one guy in, I think, Oklahoma who loved tigers, and this woman in Florida who believed that he was essentially abusing tigers for profit, and was trying to have his tigers taken away and shut them down. And the TV series is absolutely hilarious. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it, because it shows just how much insane insane things you can actually do like on this planet if you desire to do them. So, potentially if there were like tighter like tiger ownership regulations in the United States, maybe this wouldn't have happened. But it's just an example, and there's other totally wacko things that can absolutely play out like anywhere at any time. Tiger King, I think, is a great example of there being no adults, because fundamentally, these are adult human beings who are doing things that are totally not adultish in a conventional sense. And there's no one to kind of referee. Okay, so I'm talking to Canadians, so I think this is okay to talk about. The former kind of social media influencer in chief did a lot of damage to the United States. It's really scary, kind of where we're at right now. It's enabled conspiracy theories to become almost like mainstream, like tens of millions of people believe in these like QAnon theories now, right? And it has these people literally invading the US Capitol. And that's terrifying, right? And the rest of the world is watching an absolute horror. This is, fundamentally, again, this is happening because like there was no like cabal of like people pulling the strings behind the scenes, like keeping this craziness from happening, right? Like keeping Donald Trump out of power or whatever it was. Like you're just seeing like adults doing what they do, which is just like pursuing their weird little missions and goals, and doing things that make them happy and or make them money or whatever it is. The United States is in kind of total chaos and kind of falling apart right now, because there are no adults. Really, there truly aren't. George Soros is not, kind of behind the scenes keeping everything in check. No one is. GameStop. This one's recent, right? So this was like 2 weeks ago. So essentially, what happened in the GameStop story 2 weeks ago is a bunch of nerds in their basements, across the United States, with extra time on their hands, decided to learn a lot about how the stock market worked, and burned by the 2008 financial crisis, when the corporations were bailed out and the people weren't, and no bankers went to jail. They channeled their time and energy and research into trying to execute a short squeeze on hedge funds on Wall Street, and it didn't work. As far as I know, as of today, I don't think it worked. But they got really close, and it scared. It really, I think it actually really scared a lot of people who are kind of in the conventional finance industry. There wasn't some like mastermind organizing this. Like it was like kind of like an organic conversation that evolved on Reddit, right? And again, it was allowed to happen because there are no adults. Like there was no way to stop it. And I don't know what the fallout's going to be, if anyone's going to actually get arrested. But I have a hard time understanding exactly who would be arrested. And if no one was going to get arrested after the 2008 financial crisis, then why would someone get arrested for the GameStop situation, right? And that is the kind of terrible logic that you are asked to kind of think about from that story. So last but not least is climate change, which I have been focused on for a decade. As soon as I started doing research and taking internships in undergrad in Montreal and at McGill and in research exchanges, I was working on climate change. I was working on wastewater treatment. I was working on water chemistry. It was important to me because I wanted to make the world a better place and reduce environmental impacts, and try to stop climate change. Climate change hasn't been just like solved decades ago, as it probably kind of should have been, because again, there are no adults, right? Like no one was in charge of it. So, we are where we are because more powerful entrenched interests, like the fossil fuel industry, had the ear of regulators, right? And had absolutely no incentive to transition away from the energy system that they had built. So it took outsiders to do that. So to summarize, throughout my life, I have encountered kind of principle after principle that turned out to be myth after myth. Santa Claus isn't real. You know, my parents were never really in control. They were just doing their best, right? They just were doing what they thought was best. And the exact same goes for your parents. They're just human beings. You know, companies are reliable and provide, you know, reliable services that we can all depend on. That's mostly true, but, you know, also Six Sigma is also true, right? And everything's really a sausage factory when you really get behind the scenes to understand how it works. And yeah, like adults don't really exist, right? So you'll never really feel like an adult. You know, Katya will tell you that, you know, she probably doesn't feel like an adult and is still waiting. Yeah, there you go. Probably still waiting for the day when she feels like an adult, right? But that day never comes. Like we're all the adults, and there are no adults. So once you realize that, right, you realize how many of these things are myths, and that you don't have to believe in them, right? You're in power. You are intelligent. You have the capability to build new things and create and change the world. You don't have to rely on the government or companies or anyone else to do it. It's up to you, right? Or us, really. It's up to us, all of us collectively. So yeah, behind all these things, there's nothing. They're myths. And the allegory I like for this is the Wizard of Oz, right? So there's this kind of deity kind of character who is you know, controlling the Emerald City, but really behind it is just like some creepy, slimy old man who's like just pulling levers. And once you realize that it's just a creepy, slimy old man pulling levers, then you realize that you know, you have power too. You are intelligent too. You are operable too. Okay, time to grow up. Okay. Okay, so seriously, so there's no adult, but there is information. Okay. What I wish someone would have told me 10 years ago is that one of your main priorities in life should be being right about important things. And I know that this kind of violates a Canadian sensibility, because Canadians really value like kind of agreement and consensus, and are kind of afraid of kind of fighting each other. And I think that's good, and I think that's why Canada is still a pretty sweet country that works pretty well. But a fraction of us can't be that way. A fraction of us have to get mad about how the world is, and a fraction of us have to be mad enough that they want to change how the world works. And the way I think the way you change the world works is to just be right about things over and over, and be right about important things. And you know, and that's exactly what we need now to solve climate change, period. And if you want to have a real impact on solving climate change, whether it's developing a new technology or a project or whatever it is, you need to take that seriously, because, you know, people won't invest in you unless you're right, and you demonstrate that you're right over and over and over. So this requires accumulating a large quantity of high quality information. Those are different things, right? So you can have a lot of information, but it could be low quality, and that's what trivia is, right? Just knowing a bunch of facts doesn't actually mean anything. You have to kind of put it together and derive meaning from it. And quality of information is really orthogonal to that, right? So high quality information is information that is useful for doing things or building things, and affecting change in the real world. And there are I think like 3 common ways of increasing the quantity of information you have. And I think the number one is time. So that is why older people tend to be in charge of things. It's just because they've been on the earth longer, so they've had more time to accumulate information. But you can increase the quantity of information that you have in your head by reading books and listening to podcasts, and having a wide variety of experiences. And you can increase the quality of the information that you collect by having a bit of luck, but keeping in mind that you can also make your own luck, right? You don't need to just get it from your dad or mom. Seeking negative feedback is a good way to increase the quality of information that you have and control. Because if you're always seeking positive feedback and always trying to kind of nurse your ego and feel good about what you're doing, then you'll have blind spots, and you won't have the highest quality information about the thing that you're trying to do. And talking to people with high quality information is a good way to get high quality information, kind of obviously. So at McGill, like right now, you 19-year-old, are practicing how to learn and think. And you're doing that to increase your chances of being right about important things in the future. So some unsolicited advice. I can't help myself. I'm sorry if it's a little tacky. But basically, what I wish someone would have told me 10 years ago is kind of like these things. So learn how to structure your thoughts, because that's how you make them useful. Challenge everything that is told to you. Always ask questions. Again, kind of not a very Canadian kind of attitude, but don't just like accept what is told to you. Always kind of like be a little bit annoying and like be inquisitive. Very importantly, and this is one I've only learned very recently, avoid reacting emotionally to new information. Because emotional reactions are usually not the best reactions. You need to kind of reflect and place information that you receive into the context of the network of information that is your knowledge before you react. Have diverse and dramatic experiences. Right now, when you're 18 to 22 years old, is the most amazing time to have diverse and dramatic experiences. If you can travel, if you can do international research experiences, do it. I went to Switzerland in 2013, I think, or 2014 to EPFL. I don't know if that program still exists. But I also went to Mexico City the summer after I finished undergrad, and McGill gave me like $6,000 for my flights and lodging. So Katya and the Faculty of Engineering are trying to cultivate those experiences for you. Take advantage of them. Apply to everything. Take what you can get. And make sure you have a diversity of experiences. Number five, I actually added this one this morning. Force yourself to have seemingly unsexy experiences sometimes. So my first internship in Montreal was at Terragon Environmental Technologies, which is a wastewater treatment technology company with a lot of ties to McGill. And I was kind of like the lab hand. Like, I didn't know anything, right? So it's not like I was going to be able to develop a new product for them that was going to create a lot of value. I was kind of like an analytical chemist assistant. I literally had to put human feces in blenders. I'm not kidding. Okay, it was disgusting. It was terrible. But I learned a lot. Also, the story is hilarious, but I also learned a lot about water chemistry and process development and chemical engineering. And it was extremely valuable. It was a formative experience.
Alex,
so
we call that paying your dues. That's what our generation did too. When we got jobs, you got to pay your dues, including.
Yeah.
By the way, the founder of you probably know, he did his PhD in chemical engineering at McGill. Peter Santrikos.
The Greek guys, yeah.
Yes.
Him and his family, yeah. I met Peter's a good guy. And Valerie Levier did her PhD at McGill. Who else? I mean, anyways, there's tons of connections. That experience was formative. Yeah, I realize that it is the same thing as paying your dues, but I don't like the expression paying your dues because it just feels like very dominating. I don't know.
Very boomer-like. I know.
Very boomer. Yeah, very boomer. So yeah. But number 6, respect people. Like, respect everybody you meet, regardless of like how accomplished they are or how smart you think they are, or whatever the parameter is. Respect other human beings, because fundamentally we none of us are adults. We're all just kids, like, chickens trying to, hens trying to run the hen house, or whatever other metaphor you want to use. We're all trying to do our best, and none of us have all of the best information. None of us control all of the truth, right? We all control a snippet of the truth, and collectively we all kind of control all the truth. So yeah, always respect people. Okay, don't productize yourself. Don't turn yourself into a product, right? You're not a resume, you're a human being. Always be authentic, first of all. Second of all, don't be afraid of failure or looking stupid, ever. Don't be afraid. It's so important to not be afraid if you're trying to create new things or do something new, because you will always look stupid if you're creating something new, and you will always fail if you're creating something new. Always. It's a rule. It's not an exception, it's a rule. So don't be afraid of failure, and don't be afraid of looking stupid. And the corollary is don't always try to look cool, right? Like everyone's going on about Clubhouse right now. I was trying to figure out how I was going to sneak this into my presentation. I think it's so obnoxious. I mean, like, it's just like an app that it's like, if you're like, if you just had like a YouTube live webcast with like a black screen, it's the same thing, right? But they turned it into an app and made it really sexy by making it exclusive. Always be skeptical of stuff like that, right? Because it's you know, probably transient, but it's just hype, right? Don't fall for hype. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent. I'm upset about Clubhouse. Number 3, try to bring the world to ideas. Or sorry, don't try to bring the world to ideas. Don't try to bring the world to ideas. Bring ideas to the world in the form of products. A product is an idea about how the world should be. I think this is a very common failure mechanism of people who are trying to solve climate-related and energy technology-related problems. They talk about like circularity and kind of abstract concepts, and they're trying to like make big businesses like appreciate these concepts. They don't appreciate these concepts. They appreciate like forms of these concepts that are useful to them and solves one of their problems or something, right? So just kind of reverse the way you think about like ideas versus the world. Don't ask for permission. Maybe this is like a little bit redundant with don't be afraid, but no one's going to give you permission to build something or create something or do something, because there's no adults, there's no one in charge, and no one cares about you more than you, right? Like you were in charge of your own life. No one has their hand on your shoulder, like kind of, you know, that's going to tell you like, yes, you're allowed to do that, right? No one's ever going to tell you that you're allowed to do something. So if you think it's important, then do it, right? And see what happens, you know, get kind of feedback on if what you're trying to do is valuable or not important. Don't give up. So unless the laws of thermodynamics disagree with you about something you're trying to do, or if, you know, there's some other kind of technical constraint to the thing you're trying to do, don't give up. If what you're doing is important and has the potential to make the world a much better place, don't give up. Keep going, be persistent. And finally, don't lie. Everybody lies. Companies lie. People within organizations lie. There's so much freaking lying in this world. It's not just politicians. Like literally everybody lies all the time to each other. This is a threat to your ability to accumulate a high quantity of high quality information, right? Because people are lying to you and giving you bad information. Just shut it down, right? Like if we all just stop lying to each other, then we're all gonna have better models of reality, and we'll be able to like develop better technologies and develop better projects and solve climate change and solve these issues. Don't lie. So back to climate change and energy technology. We need creators to tackle the gigantic flows of energy and material of the world. If we're going to mitigate the worst impacts of climate change, that's really hard. It takes a lot of time. It takes persistence, and no one's coming to help. The government's not coming to help. Companies aren't coming to help. So it's going to be the people who are advancing new solutions to those kind of material and energy handling problems, who are going to solve those problems. So this is a picture from the film Dune, which is a really good movie, where this woman, I forget who she is, if she's his mom or something, or a priest, but she says fear is the mind killer. So I really just wanted to like crystallize this into its own slide, to really recommend to you to not be afraid. You know, if you're wrong, you'll find out, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to start. Don't be afraid to push something that you think is important. And don't be afraid of failure, and don't be afraid of not looking cool. Just shut down that part of your brain that is like afraid, and that will unlock like your potential to do a lot of different things. Okay, now it kind of seems like this presentation is turning into something you'd expect me to present, I suppose. So, so old technology is the planet killer. So, you know, when we started kind of harnessing fossil fuels 300 years ago. You know, in the UK, they were burning coal for a lot of different operations in London, and it was killing, you know, thousands of people a year or more, whatever the fraction is. You know, you could barely breathe in London. It was terrible. This was the same, you know, almost to this day, really, in China, right? They're going through the same kind of energy transition that Europe went through hundreds of years ago, trying to kind of get up to speed on having control over operations that make our lives better, right? Like having indoor heat, or cooking, or flying, or whatever it is. This is a picture I took from a plane last week. I was flying from Miami to Charlotte, North Carolina, and there was some kind of large stream of energy and material emitting some kind of particulate matter into the atmosphere. It could have been a coal plant or something. You know, this isn't in China, and this isn't 300 years ago. It's still today, right? So, you know, there are people living under that plume of particulate matter from burning coal to make electricity, right? And we have much better ways of making electricity now. You know, so going forward, and hopefully everywhere, the world looks different, right? But that is fundamentally a technology development and deployment operation, and engineers are very good at that. And it's going to be like, you know, the Gen Z engineers really who come to really like run over the home base to, you know, kind of, I'm trying to make a baseball analogy. I've been in the US too long. But it's going to be like the young engineers today who like really see that energy transition get pushed forward, and really deliver us to that new phase, where the cost of CO2 is not externalized in these operations anymore. So, you know, what are those new technologies? It's low CO2 intense, low cost power, like solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, nuclear, potentially in certain cases. It's batteries. There is a revolution in energy technology happening right now, and it's all because of lithium-ion battery, and that's the story that I am a part of, and electrifying everything. It's CO2 removal and storage. This one's a little bit controversial, but I actually do think we're going to need it, whether it's direct air capture or some other kind of passive technology. I don't think we're going to be able to decarbonize fast enough to avoid catastrophic climate change. So I think selective CO2 removal from the atmosphere is going to play an important role, and is worth working on. And finally, you know, kind of different impact category, not CO2 but water. We are moving into a very water constrained world. So, you know, I grew up just north of Toronto, where I had a freshwater lake in every single direction. If you're on the island of Montreal right now, you have the St. Lawrence River in every direction, right? That is extremely exceptional. So a lot of the United States, mostly the Western United States, is water deprived. Like California has a bigger population than all of Canada and has water scarcity issues. Okay, like and that is almost like more typical of the rest of the world than where you are right now. You're in a very exceptional wet place. Water, like creating water abundance using renewable electricity is a very important problem to be working on now that engineers are very well poised to work on and help solve. And those are the types of problems you need to be working on. You do not need to be using hemp bags when you go to the grocery store. You do not need to work at McKinsey. You do not need to spend your time doing things that are cool and look good on your resume. You know, you are needed working on real problems today. Like it's like an emergency. So just to cap off, you know, I feel like I've already expressed this kind of sentiment in this talk, but I really just want to drive it home. McGill is an incredibly special place. McGill gave me so much. I got so much out of my time in Montreal, whether that was from people like Katya or Tyson or whoever it was. And I've been helped by way too many people to count. The McGill community will always have my support. If I make money someday, it'll have my money. Maybe get a building named after me if I make enough. We'll see. But I really want to emphasize this point because McGill has a absolutely terrible alumni network. Let me repeat to anyone listening. McGill has a atrocious alumni network. It's terrible. In the United States, alumni networks are like clubs. Like, I mean, it's crazy. Like the donation channel and like the support for current student channel, like that kind of feedback loop is so strong in like private institutions in the US, like Northwestern, where I've got my grad degree. McGill doesn't have that at all. And I think it's kind of terrible. So I'm not gonna like try to place blame on it.
It's a cultural thing. The American culture is not what we have in particular Quebec too. You know, don't even compare to Canada. Quebec is different. So that's totally an American thing.
Well, there are no adults, Katya, and I think McGill needs to adopt that culture because I think it's an incredibly powerful culture for like, you know, helping graduates succeed. And it's an incredible like emotional bond that in the United States is like very powerful. And I have that emotional bond to McGill because I had an amazing experience at McGill. But most of my friends who went to McGill don't have that bond, frankly.
There's a good suggestion. Somebody's saying that let's fix that. Let's fix the alumni situation.
Fix that.
You know why? Change that culture. Change that culture.
Let's fix it. Let's change the culture because there's no adults. No one's coming to save the day. And the synergy, like feedback loop of setting up a good alumni network is invaluable. It is so invaluable. So rant over. So if you're trying to make the world a better place, if you're trying to like, if you want to like learn about a field that I know about that I can help with, or you're trying to start a company, or you're just looking for like general life advice or whatever, email me, you know, LinkedIn me, Twitter me, whatever. I'm here to help. You know, there's no formal alumni network, but I am your alumni network. You know, I'm here to help. I want you to succeed. The world needs you to succeed. It's not about me, it's about you.
There is a formal network. There is a formal one. You can join the McGill alumni and they're on LinkedIn. There is, but it, like you're saying, compared to America, it's not exactly the same thing.
Whoever the people are who are behind it are asleep at the wheel. That's all I have to say. So to summarize, there are no adults. McGill needs a better alumni network. Decarbonization and building the new energy system requires, you know, like smart people to realize that there are no adults. If you're at McGill, you're a smart person, whether you're in undergrad or grad school or whatever it is. You know, I encourage you to believe in yourself and, you know, ask for help and don't be afraid. So those are my parting words.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Alex. Do you have time for a couple of questions from the audience? I just have one comment from one of the profs, and then I'll let the students chime in, from George Demopoulos, who works in lithium extraction.
Cool.
He came to hear about that, but he heard and enjoyed a much more interesting and fresh thesis of ideas. Thank you, Alex, and good luck in your endeavors.
Oh, thanks.
So, yeah. All right, so I'll let others hear a few questions. Oh, yeah. Oh, Sydney, would you like to go ahead? Another professor, Professor Amelon, also in mining. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, same department. Great. Yeah, thanks, Alex, for your talk. As I say, very good, refreshing to hear a talk like this. I also worked in South Bay, Los Gatos at a startup before I came to this job. So took the let's go out there and make a difference in carbon capture. So I'm sorry I missed the first few minutes of your talk. Question 1, did you define adult?
No, I didn't. No, this is a poetic experience.
Okay, all right. Because I was just curious, because I think about this a lot as someone who was thrown in, here's an empty room. I already told the VC we're making this. It was a lie. So I agree with your points about lies. Please stop lying. That's why I left Silicon Valley, because the lie density was too much. I was can't deal.
The lie density in the software space is hilarious. And you just need to follow VC Twitter to get kind of a glimpse of it, right? I mean,
I have
it's a hilarious ecosystem, but what I'm trying to learn to be better at is to not be dismayed when I find those kinds of nooks of the world that are toxic and gross and full of lies, but to laugh at them, right? To laugh at them and realize that anyone who is caught up in that ecosystem is doing themselves a disservice, right? If you're just playing into hype and trying to be cool, then you're not engaging with reality, right? And trying to collect the best information on what you're trying to do, right?
Correct. They defended my inner engineer on a daily basis. So yeah, so I wanted to go into like a couple more points. So it's a very interesting discussion of what you raised. I really liked how you're making these points to people, but I also think there's things we need to like also talk about because there are like students in the room, and this whole idea of like, are you an adult or not? So I put forth the definition that you're an adult when you start to take responsibility for others for real. Yeah. Because all the points you mentioned of where people weren't, there's no adults in the room. I argue there were, age-wise adults, but they're only thinking about themselves. Like every single case you made, they were in it to make fast money. So you made that point. So I was happy you made the point about these disasters are largely people making fast money. And then the rest of us just get screwed. And they don't care because they're not responsible for us. So there's that the engineering culture is we need to be like, you get the ring because you're responsible for others, right? Your work, right? So don't screw up. That's the don't screw up ring, because someone that is using whatever you engineered might suffer if you didn't do the job well, right? So I just want to put it out there as a discussion point that lots of people are old, like age-wise, but they don't have any personal responsibility for others, and therefore their decisions aren't, in my definition of adult, they're not responsible. So therefore they're acting like selfish kids. Like more candy, more candy. So I think like that's the filter I see that. And so I feel like that's the transition.
Totally agree with you. There are political undertones to everything I've said today. And a lot of it is a product of my experience as a Canadian learning that the United States is a Latin American country. And it is how this country works. Now, I love America. I hate winter, honestly. And I will probably stay in the United States the rest of my life, at least in California, which is, an exceptional place. But a lot of the issues in the world are underpinned by greed. Now, let's not go too deep into politics or anything, but like I identify as a capitalist. Like I think that the majority of capital should be owned by individuals and companies and not by the state. And I think the decentralization is good. But I 100%, I think we can 100% agree that like the whack, like things are out of whack right now, and like the rules need to be rewritten, right? Because the United States is like in trouble, and it's impacting the rest of the world.
To your point about being out of whack, like I have lots of friends in the investment community, and I talked a lot about, like, I was in the US for 2008, and so I talked to people who lost their homes, and I talked to people who were like super scared. So just to say I have some experience with that. And like Canada did not have the same problem. Why? Because we have tight regulations on mortgages, right? So to your point, I'm a capitalist as well. I think there should be money flowing, but I think that there's so many non-adults that are old and hold money that they're not responsible with it. Without regulation, you get the housing mortgage crisis. And in Canada, people are bored. They're like, we can't do anything interesting here with financial instruments. I'm like, yeah, but no one is losing their home that's grossly overvalued because you guys are trying to make money off of the mortgages, right? So there's like a balance point, I think.
I think your perspective is 100% valid. But what I would say, just like totally from a pragmatic perspective, like it's going to take people who do care about other people and do care about climate change and do care about society and do care about poor people not losing their homes and all these things, right? Like it's going to take people like that with that ethic to just like fight their way in. Like I don't know if you're following Chamath Palihapitiya on Twitter, but like that's like fundamentally his like thesis, right? Is like I grew up poor in Ottawa and I'm trying to like infiltrate Wall Street and like change it from within. And I think I'm not endorsing everything Chamath does and says, but like, it's going to take a lot of people like that, right? Because greed is so powerful.
Greed is definitely it's one of the 7 deadly sins for a reason. Okay, and 2 more quick points I want to make, because there's also like people on the call that are diverse. I just want to make 2 points. So one is I was in a Prius well before Tesla sold their first car that has a battery. So I just want to make that point that in fact, Toyota was on it before Tesla was on it. So there were EVs before Tesla, just to make that, because I know Musk feels like he's a hero. I don't consider him a hero figure, but that's another story. Second is just a point to make to the females in the room and those that aren't visibly white and male, and don't take this the wrong way, Alex, you didn't choose who you were born into.
No,
but
100%.
The points you make, I just want to tell the women, because I was a female in tech in California, and guess what? All the female PhDs built the company and progressively got demoted till they quit. So all the guys took over. So sexism is alive, and it is well, and racism is still alive and well. So your points are, I think, good internal points to keep. Like, I should do what I want. I shouldn't have fear. I should just do whatever I want. But I think I only got as far as I have so far because I am respectful that I can't just do everything I want because I am a female. So I have to act differently in the technical world. I have to portray myself differently in the technical world, or I wouldn't be where I am. So just to say as a counterpoint to your point, like, don't have fear, just go and do it. Sometimes you just can't unless you're aware of your surrounding, your environments, the constraints, the way other people see you before you open your mouth. It just is a reality. So I'd like to tell the other people in the audience, because I'm allowed to talk because I'm in Canada, free speech, woo. First Amendment doesn't exist here. But just to say that I really appreciate your like philosophy about this believing in yourself, but sometimes there are just actual limitations that I don't think you ever felt because of who you are. And that's great because you could like, you are doing great things with your position, which is awesome. But just to tell others in the room, do think if you have a female body that you're living in, it just means it's different. It doesn't mean it's, you know, like it's different. So take what Alex is saying like to heart, but also realize that you will, there are barriers for you. So it's up to you to be clever about how to get through them or around them or start your own company or whatever, but just to also throw a realistic, like, man, I've hit my head against a lot of walls only because I'm female. And I've had young men tell me, I'm sorry, I see sexism all over what's happening with you at this company. And as a man, I want to apologize. So just to say that, drop that in as a little like flavor component to your salad of good ideas.
That was amazing, Sydney. No, thank you so much for contributing that. Yeah, I mean, like I'm like an invisible minority, right? Like I don't have to tell people that I'm married to a guy, right? Exactly. But when I do, like I have to come out over and over and over to like people in business or wherever. But I don't have to, right? And like people
still make first impression is like you got a great first impression.
People still make misogynistic jokes to me, like old white men, right? And I like just take them in stride and I'm like, okay, like I'll be your gay best friend someday. But I'm not a visible minority, right? And like my only visible deficiency right now in the eyes of old white men is being young, right? And I often joke like, oh, wow, I'm gonna grow out of being young, but if I was a woman, I wouldn't grow out of being a woman. No. So I just want to say
transition, it's even worse. So like you don't have any options.
Absolutely, yeah. So I just want to say like if you're female or brown, I'm married to a brown person. If you are a visible minority, like I'm capital H here for you, and like I want to elevate you, and I want you to succeed. I want everyone to succeed, but I really, really, really want you to succeed. And I want everybody to take. I mean, really, I just want everyone to take the same ethic because I am 100% aware of that sexism and racism and homophobia all are still very alive. It is, you know, just saying like this is 2021 doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's all still there. It's all really still there.
Exactly. At least we're talking about it, which is good, right? We can actually more openly discuss without sounding like, what are you talking about? Like, you're not supposed to do things.
No, it's good to be explicit about it and like name the beast and don't try to like pussyfoot around it. Because it's real. It's very like, I mean, I have women, I work with women who have reported terrible things to me about their business experience. And it makes me very sad. It really, really makes me sad. So
I just feel like it's good to just comment to everyone, like it's there. And like, as you say, reach out for help, comment, discuss. And I think it is overall getting better. It's just slow. And the last thing I wanted to say was thank you so much for your point about the rules of thermodynamics, because I totally 100% agree with that. Like we can create our own realities, but in the end, Mother Nature always wins, which is why I love the engineering education experience, because you learn that there are things you just can't change. And that's, I think, a good lesson in many ways. So it shows you what you can work on and what is just like, nope, that's the wall and there's no point. And like some old men, they're never going to see me anything other than their little cute daughter. Why are you in a workplace like this? And that's just like, okay, fine, that's you. I'll go around it. So yeah, so it's a nice lesson. So thank 100%. You for a really interesting talk. It was good. I just wanted to make some other comments and discuss with you. And thanks for presenting to everyone. It's really,
I appreciate your comments. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much, Sydney. Well, Alex, if you want to stop sharing the screen, we're over the time, but if there are still a couple more questions or comments, you can not share your screen and then you'll see everybody. If somebody wants to just, there we go. So I don't know if anybody had, because I know we're over time, but if there are any more.
You all know how to find me, so.
Yes, I have a small question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I from my experience, when you try to propose greener ideas to company, they are always interested, but they are always also fearful of the risk. So how do you tackle that? Because me right now, I'm trying to do that. And when I go to propose them, they ask me, are you sure it's going to work? And I say, maybe. And then they say, sometimes they say yes, and sometimes they say no. But I see there's a resistance to change. So I would like to know what you think about that.
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, like for technology development and deployment, there's proof of concept and there's proof of value, right? So proof of concept is showing that it works by the laws of physics and thermodynamics, right? Proof of value is showing that it works economically. It has to work economically. No one said it's allowed to work not economically, right? Now, I mean, you know, do you price in the value of the carbon you emit, right? That's another question when you're doing that comparison. What I would say is like big companies listen. They have very big ears. They love collecting information. They will happily accept any PDF you send them and store it in their library. It does not mean that you have traction. It does not mean that they are seriously contemplating adopting and implementing your technical approach. So I think it's very industry specific, depending on like, are you minnow hunting or whale hunting, right? Like are you tackling 1,000 liter per second stream of something, or are you trying to sell like hemp bags for the grocery store? Like those are totally different like business development cycles, and like the tools you use to kind of deploy a new product or solution, and for those two types of customers is totally different. So feel free to reach out later if you want to talk about what you're working on. You know, be happy to help.
I will.
But yeah, no, big companies, big companies don't change unless they're forced to change by the government or investors. I have no hope in the government, frankly. The government, governments haven't solved climate change like they should have 20, 30 years ago. Most of them are almost like, banana republics. Canada is like way better than the US right now, but what I will say is like my childhood, morning TV sweetheart, Seamus O'Regan, is now Minister of Natural Resources. He's still talking up oil and gas in Newfoundland today, right? Because he doesn't want to lose votes for the Liberal Party in Newfoundland. And Justin Trudeau is like calling Joe Biden, being like, hey, we shouldn't cancel the Keystone XL pipeline, right? Do you guys have any idea like how many lithium natural resources Canada has? And nickel? I mean, think about that big nickel in Sudbury, right? Like Canada, and graphite, there's graphite in Quebec, there's lithium in Quebec, there's nickel in Quebec, there's graphite in Quebec. Almost everything on the bill of materials for a lithium-ion battery is in Quebec. I mean, build that, right? Like forget oil and gas, right? It's the past, right? Alberta is not coming back. There's not going to be another cycle. It's over. Build the future, right? So your I mean, I think the federal government in Canada is failing its citizens, frankly, in this respect as well. This is not a radical left statement. Like this isn't like an NPV. Oh my God, NDP. Wow, I just gave a lot away there. I'm clearly a capitalist. This is not like an NDP Green Party statement, right? Like this is the future. This is now. This is reality. This is markets. This is like real products being built right now and in the future. I mean this from an NPV perspective, not an NDP perspective. It's not an ideological statement. I want Canada to capture value from the energy transition, whether that's financial or intellectual property or whatever. I've been really disappointed to see the messaging from federal ministers in Canada. It's crazy. I mean, it feels like Joe Biden is saying things that are more relevant now. Anyways, I'm sure they'll figure it out. So eventually, but I just wish Canada was like at the forefront, right? Instead of like following. That's always
Quebec is, Alex. We've got our plan for electrification, which makes sense, right? We do have hydro electricity here. So,
I think that's probably true. And Quebec could be the battery of North America, right? Yeah. I mean, the hydro, it wasn't obvious to me when I was living in Montreal how crazy Quebec's grid is, but it's like from the 22nd century. Like Quebec's electricity grid is so cool. It's like 20 or 30 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour power from hydro. So it's like you can ramp it up, and you don't have to worry about clouds and nighttime. Like, it's incredible asset, right? And I think Hydro-Quebec is one of the leading, technology research, firms in the world, right? So yeah, Quebec is an amazing place to be working on those problems, and has so much potential, but it needs to be cultivated in the right direction, right? Like why don't we make green ammonia in Quebec, right? And somehow figure out how to get a premium for it in some market. Like hydrogen to make ammonia is made from fossil fuels today, right? CO2 is emitted every single time you make a hydrogen molecule. But if you could split water, and there's tons of water in Quebec, with hydropower, which is very low CO2 intense, you could make very low carbon intense chemical products like ammonia, potentially, reducing iron to make steel, other metal processing operations.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities, and Hydro-Quebec and IREC, their research institute, acknowledges that there's more, there's room, definitely.
Well, good luck.
Yeah. Most people are signaling they have to be going because we did go over. I don't know if there's time for one last question for Alex before we sign off.
Don't be afraid.
Anybody? If not, on behalf of McGill Engine and NSEAM or Quang and Anushree, feel free to also say some words. Thank you so much, Alex. We appreciated this very different talk, and it's good. It's refreshing. Nice to see different ways of showing us.
But Katya, how would you rank the memes? Like,
oh yeah, I'm not a good. Let's ask Quang and Anushree.
Like
I don't know.
Like
I'm not
12,
one.
Like 12 out of 10, or like 13 out of 10, or.
What do you guys say?
I give it a 9 out of 10. A little bit too deep.
Wow, the best memes on my phone are not even a 10 out of 10. I can't believe it.
I really appreciated the rare aesthetic memes. Were really good. Those are at least a 12, I think, or 10.
Okay, at least 12. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So wonderful. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And everybody has Alex's contact information. Get that alumni network going. One person at a time.
Can you install me as like the head of the California Alumni Network? Because
I will find out for you. Yes.
I don't know what these people are doing.
Extra contacts. You're in SF,
terrible,
right?
I'm in San Francisco. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye.
À la prochaine.
À la prochaine.